Good day, Perpetualites! Welcome to PerpsMediaTalk, your gateway to media, information, and technology literacy, brought to you by the Media and Information Literacy team of the English and Humanities Department of the University of Perpetual Health System Data Molino campus. And this is our first lesson in this semester. All right. Now, what's good about this program is that you would get to meet all of us in this team, meaning more teachers, more fun. Is that right? And in this session, you will be with me, Miss Sheridan S. Tugtug, or Miss Anne from the English and Humanities Department. And I hope that you will learn a lot from me in this session. So let me share to you my screen. Here are the different things that we would have to discuss for today. All right, first off, let's have the learning objectives. For the learning objectives, number one, we will be defining the key terms, media, information, technology, and literacy, and also media and information literacies as a whole. Next one is debunk myths surrounding media literacy. And the third one is to create a log that reflects the current use and interaction with media and information. So we see we get to define, to debunk, and also to apply. Are you ready? If you're ready, then I hope that your Google Classrooms are ready as well. If you could, please open your Google Classroom right now and then go to the forum section, forum or announcement section. Your teacher will be putting the questions that I will be flashing here later on in this activity called Low Tech Future. What if one day, imagine this, you wake up and then there's no internet, libraries, cell phones, newspapers, and the magazines, radio stations, and TV channels have all disappeared. And what are you going to do? Let me give you the questions. Please answer this one as truthfully as you can. Number one, how would you be informed of anything by then? Okay, we all know that we all rely on social media, news platforms, and the aforementioned media. Now, what ways would you have to communicate with one another? What if your parents are residing on the other side of the globe as OFWs? What if your friends have already migrated to Australia? How are you going to communicate with them without Skype, without Viber or Messenger? Okay, so that is your task for today. You have to tell me about the ways that you're gonna do if this would happen, but I'd like it to also be as realistic as you can. And then the last but not the least, how would it affect the way that you live? Because we all know that most of us are very reliant towards these technology. And sometimes, or some people might say that they could not live without it. If you're that kind of person, then how are you going to survive the low tech future? Okay, I would like to read all of your answers. So, and I guess your teachers too would be very happy to see your answers. So, I'd like you to please comment that on the comment section of the announcement that your teacher will provide in the Google Classroom. Okay, moving on. Let us now define the different terms on MIL or Media and Information Literacy. First is media. When you say media, it refers to the physical objects that are used to communicate with or the mass communication through physical objects such as radio, television, computers, or film, and etc. So when you say media, it is the avenue for us to communicate. Okay, so remember this term because we are going to use this on the next part of our lessons later on. Next term that we are going to define is information. Maybe you have already seen this logo here most of the times whenever you are looking at manuals or even in the internet. This sign is this might be familiar with you. Or if not, at least now you get to see it, right? So information is a broad term that covers processed data, knowledge derived from study and experience. When you say information, it's something that you have prepared, and at the same time, it's something that you have researched for a long time, meaning you have spent time and effort just to get it. Okay, as mentioned here, by studying or based on your first-hand experience or even second-hand experience, when you get to talk to other people and you get to share your experiences, that's where you get information. Actually, by simply talking to your best friend, your besties, and by simply talking to your parents or your schoolmates, you get to have information or you get to acquire information from them. And if you have heard or if you have remembered from your oral communication subject, the process of communication is also the process of getting information. Now, another is from instruction, from signals and symbols. If you already got your driver's license, then you might be familiar with traffic signs and symbols. Okay. I don't think you would get your license without knowing all of those, right? Like the U-turn sign, or even here in school, you would get to see the exit and the entrance sign. Okay. And if you look at the floor, you would see arrows that actually leads you to the right way. Okay, so that's information, my dear students. And for the third one, we have literacy. When you say literacy, it's the ability to identify, understand, and interpret, also to create, communicate, and compute using printed and written materials associated with varying contexts. Okay, so when you say literacy, that means that you have mastered it. Okay, you don't just have the knowledge, but you have the ability to analyze things that are way beyond what's written on a textbook or way beyond what you could search on your search engines such as Google. Okay, it's not just something that will live somewhere else. When you say you're literate about something, even if you don't have a book with you, even if you don't have any research paper with you, then you could navigate it. All right. And you could also teach it to other people. These are signs that you are actually literate about something or that there is literacy. Okay. But before I forget, um, the comparison and contrast of things is also a sign of literacy. Okay. Now, what about when you say media literacy? I know that by now we are done defining terms such as media, information, and literacy. Now, what if you combine these words? Of course, we all know that when we combine words, we come up with another term that has a varied meaning. So when you say media literacy, this is the ability to access, analyze, evaluate, and create media in a variety of forms. Okay? Take note, in a variety of forms, meaning there is a wide range of of choices rather when it comes to media literacy. And it aims to empower citizens by providing them with the competencies, knowledge, and skills that are necessary to engage with traditional media and new technologies. As we all know that day by day, there are a lot of changes that are going on, not just in our society, but also around the world. Like internationally, there are different changes when it comes to media and when it comes to technologies. Okay, so day by day, there are a lot of inventions, and these inventions becomes trend. Okay, it becomes trends, and these trends were adopted by all of us. You see, in TikTok, in Messenger, in Facebook, even in YouTube. If you see a trend, then you do it. Maybe not all of it, but I know most of us are guilty of, doing the trends because these are pads, right? And we always do pads so that we would be updated and at the same time so that we would not lose touch with reality. So, what does it mean when you say that you are media literate? Let's see. These are different platforms and types of media that are existing at the moment. So, in we have social media platforms, and we have Twitter, Facebook, Foursquare, LinkedIn. I think MySpace might not be that familiar with you anymore. Flickr, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, even TikTok, Yelp, TripAdvisor. We have Tencent. If you're into gaming, you might be familiar with Tencent, of course. And then we have Airbnb, used for finding listings of condo units, or it might be hotels. Craigslist is also for that. Or Craigslist is also for that. And we have WhatsApp, we have Skype, Telegram, and Snapchat. So all of these are actually social media platforms, and also it is being used not just for fun but also for research. But then, my dear students, you have to know that not everything revolves around social media. We also have emails, blog sites. Blog sites are where you kind of put your written works. Okay, or if you're a really good writer, a copywriter rather, then sometimes they post it there and it serves as their portfolio. If you're familiar with Tumblr, that's an example of blog sites. And also we have search engines like Google. I think the most familiar search engine for you is Google. And then news websites. So these news websites are actually traditional media as well. They are news news teams in news companies like GMA, ABS-CBN, have TV5, and stuff like that. Outside of the Philippines, we have CNN, ANC, what else? CBC, I think for some countries, or for Korea, if I'm not mistaken. So these are news websites. And then we have traditional media, the television, radio, newspaper. Okay, so if you're familiar with all of it and you think you could navigate that one, okay, so if you think that you understand all of the things that I have mentioned, and at the same time, avoid the misuse of these platforms like hacking and spamming, okay, if you could avoid that one, then that is media literacy. If you have reached to a point when you could actually determine which is harmful in the internet and which is not, okay, which of the traditional media are reliable and valid, like which newspaper says real information or says the truth rather without bias when it comes to journalism. That's media literacy, my dear students. You have to remember that to be able for you to use these platforms properly, you have to be literate first. All right. Next one is information literacy. Now, when you say information literacy, it is the ability to recognize when information is needed and to locate, evaluate, and effectively communicate information in its various formats. Now, let me reiterate this one. Recognize when information is needed. Because we all know that nowadays, all information are actually accessible in search engines and even social media platforms that I have discussed with you earlier. But when is a certain information needed and when is it not? Then again, it's a question of Data Privacy Act in this one because there are information that should not be publicized. Okay? Such as your personal information, like some of your identification numbers, like in SSS, TIN ID, okay, and even your passport, because we don't know Maybe it could be used in fraud, okay, or scam. Another, not all the things or not in all information about you should be publicized because it's your protection. Okay, because nowadays some people might use this information to clone an account for you or to make dummy accounts under your name and then, scam people. So when you say information literacy, that means there is a mastery of content creation. Second, reliability and accuracy of information. If it is reliable, if you know what is misinformation versus real information, then that is information literacy. If you could give feedback after hearing an information, that's also a sign of literacy. And of course, the most important one is to recognize information barriers. Well, I don't have any source for this because I just coined the term information barriers right now. I don't know if it's even existing on other platform, but by information barriers, what I mean is that there is misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. Now, what is the difference between these three? You might say, Ma'am, I thought it was just fake news. And now you're telling us that there are different types of misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. Well, I have also believed before that it is simply fake news. As a matter of fact, before I gained knowledge about this one, I just call it fake news like you guys. But after some time, when I get to join a guild that's called Youth for Truth and the workshop Youth for Truth Laboratory Workshop Against Misinformation. And I have learned about this one. And mind you guys, from then on, I have never used the term fake news anymore. Now, a little bit of info why I don't use the term fake news. Because the term or news is actually provided by whom? By journalists, right? And I am a journalist myself. And to say fake news is like saying that it's provided by journalists, actually, when in fact, not all fake news are provided by journalists or news platforms. So I think it is not right for us to use the term fake news as it is very biased towards the press or the journalists. I prefer to use the words misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation as it gives us division on these information barriers. When you say misinformation, that means that you yourself might be misinformed or you're not actually sure about something, yet you shared it with other people. So that's misinformation. Like, for example, you have seen the post, walang pasok bukas. And then because you're too excited about it, then you have told your classmates that there is a no, there is a suspension of classes by tomorrow. So that, my dear students, is misinformation. And you say disinformation. These are things that are used, yeah, actually to harm and to not to tell the truth about something or someone, sometimes for clout chasing, if you're familiar with the term. Like, for example, during the campaign of politicians on the previous election, there were news that are circulating about different politicians that are not actually true about them. So that's disinformation. And we also have malinformation. Mostly, malinformation is used for frauds, okay, and scams in this case. So that is the difference between these information barriers. And next time, I hope that we would have a different time to discuss all of these three because it's kind of, I mean, the topic itself is very wide, and I think that you're not gonna understand this just in one. I mean, by just speaking about it in one sitting. So I really hope that we would have another session for this one. Anyway, let us move on to the next literacy, and that is technology literacy. When you say technology literacy, it is the ability of an individual either working independently or with others to responsibly, appropriately, and effectively use technological tools. Using these tools, an individual can access, manage, integrate, evaluate, create, and communicate information. So this just shows that it is not enough that you know how to navigate gadgets. Okay, it's not enough that you know how to turn on and turn off your cell phones. Because if you would just turn on and turn off your cell phones, then that is just very simple. But for you to navigate this gadget, for you to know the settings, to navigate the wallpapers, for example, and when you go to the web, if you know how to identify whether your phone is working well or not in these websites, or if the version of your OS or operating system on your laptop actually matches the application that you're downloading, then that, my dear students, is technology literacy. Because you don't just see gadgets on surface level. Like you don't just see it just for calling and texting, for example, or you don't just see your laptop just simply for typing, but you understand it. Okay. Then next is next what call this proof that you are technology literate is that you use traditional mass media platforms like a pro as well. Like you could navigate the television, the radio, and even the newspaper. Okay, you know where the news section is, you know where the editorial section is, and also nowadays we have smart TVs, right? Sometimes smart TV could be really hard to navigate if you're not familiar or if you're not technology literate. Meaning, it's not just about the computers, cell phones, and tablets or the gadgets that are quite new nowadays. It's also about the traditional mass media. So you could only call yourself technology literate if you have navigated the traditional ones and also the new ones. So aside from that, well, if you're a pro, then you could navigate machineries. Machineries are used in factories or big companies, for example. And that's actually if you are already a pro or if you have been in the field for quite a long time. And of course, it will be shown if you have the ability to avoid the abuse in using these technologies, like gadget addiction. Okay, I know that a lot of us are quite guilty about it because most of us could not even be separated from our cell phones. Okay, there were actually we wake up with our cell phones and then afterwards, well, we do sleep with our phones. Okay, sometimes we even leave our phones, with videos playing on it, okay, as we fall asleep. So abuse is an addiction is actually a sign that you are not technology literate at all because you haven't appropriately, responsibly, and effectively used these technological tools. Okay, and also overconsumption. Okay, if you have more than 5 phones, for example, more gadgets than you needed, I wouldn't call it that you're just techie. You are not technology literate in that sense. Because you're not just contributing to the carbon footprint of the earth, that you're also not responsibly using these gadgets. All right. Unless you really need it for work, for example. Like for teachers, we could not live without two gadgets, especially during the online classes, because we actually need one for our mic, one for the visual aids, okay, and another one for doing for making our grades and stuff like that. Okay. Next. Next one is media and information literacy. Okay. When you say media and information literacy, it is the essential skills and competencies that allow individuals to engage with media and other information providers effectively. as well as develop critical thinking and lifelong learning skills to socialize and become active citizens. So you see, media and information literacy is not just about, talks about technology or information. We're not going to be talking about chase me's on your neighborhood and be like the Marites and Marisol, but we are going to talk about how we are going to use these media, I mean, the platforms, and then the proliferation of these information, to good use. How are we going to use this to help our country or to help the citizens of our country? Because media and information literacy is actually a lifelong learning skill. You say lifelong learning, you're going to use it for the rest of your lives. Actually, you don't need to be a, don't need to have a lot of gadgets to learn these things. You don't also need to be very pro in using machineries. You just have to use this well. Be able for us you know, to communicate well, right? And to build a habit of using these platforms in an appropriate manner or an effective manner. And this way, we would have an interaction that's empowering. Okay, not a negative type of interaction because we already learned how to control things and to navigate these platforms well. Moreover, we could actually use this in sharing more information, knowledge, and skills. And at the same time, value what we have nowadays. Because just like what I told you earlier, what if one day you would experience a low tech future? Are you going to survive? Okay. If you are media and information literate, I think you would. But of course, let's not wait for that to happen. Okay. Technology has given us a lot of perks in life. Now, this table here shows how common online activities and different literacies are being used. First, in sending an electronic message. Before, during my high school days, we are simply using our cell phones, the one with keypads. If you have that, because nowadays I think they're still selling it, okay, for us spare phones. So before, that's the only way that we could send our message by simply using that keypad cell phone and sending text messages. But nowadays, there are a lot of ways wherein you could send your message. We have email, we have Yahoo, we have Google, we have Microsoft even. And then we could do messaging via video or voice calls as well, in Messenger. And also, we could send what we call as a DM or a direct message either on Twitter or in Instagram. But before all of that, the traditional one is like sending mails toward each other. Okay, so that's the old way of sending messages. But since we are talking about electronic messages, let's see how information literacy works for sending an electronic message. So if in media, we use it as a platform or we are familiar with the different platforms, if you're information literate, then when you're sending an electronic message, you know what to put inside your message. If you would remember during our orientation, I have discussed with you that there is a right way on how you could approach your teacher or you should approach your teacher. So first off, you have to greet, you have to tell who you are. At the same time, you have to tell your intention or the purpose of messaging someone. And then afterwards, clarify situations. After clarifying, you thank the person or show a sign of gratitude and then end your message. That's how you are. That's how we will know that you're actually information literate and not just someone who would say hi, hello without even stating his or her purpose. As mind you guys, this could actually trigger anxiety towards other people. Okay? Because if you don't say your intention and you would like reply after 10 hours, then that would build so much anxiety on the person that you have messaged. Okay? So we have to have to actually know that as an information literate person, we have to think of the appropriateness of our message, the tone, because messages doesn't have, even if you put emojis on it, it does not have any emotion in it, and sometimes it tends to be the reason for misunderstanding toward or between people. Okay, and also you have to know who is your recipient, because that would, well, it would be humiliating if you send your message to the wrong person, right? Although it happens to me as well because of Messenger. If I'm using my laptop, the Messenger chat box keeps on popping up, even if I'm still, typing my message for other people. So that could be some sort of an incident. But if you are an information literate system, you would know that Messenger also has the unsend button, or the unsend button rather. Okay? And as a technology literate person, that means you know where to send these electronic message. Okay? If it is an email, then you might use your mobile phone or computer. If it is a video call, then that could also be it. So being technology literate means that you could navigate these tools. And then for the next one, we have getting the latest news. Now, if a media literate person is getting the latest news, then he or she could and find newspapers. I think we still have Inquirer, Philippine Star, and Manila Bulletin, and so on. Actually, there are still tabloids like the thick ones. I think it's still existing. And then TV or radio could be one medium for that. And if you don't have any television at home, you could actually use your phones or your laptops to go to websites, okay, social media sites, news websites, and others. And then if you're an information literate person, then you would know whether the news that you got is actually correct or not. As I have discussed earlier, something about misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. If you analyze, or if you're information literate, then you could analyze whether or not the news that you got is actually factual. So it's about appropriateness, reliability, accuracy, tone, audience, and others. And aside from that, okay, you don't just take everything. All right. You also have to give your own feedback or your information and opinion regarding that certain news. Okay, you could react. Right now, we have the like sign, the heart sign, we have the crying emoji, the smiling emoji, the angry one. So, these are reactions that we could find in social media. Or if it is a post, you could comment on it. And sometimes pages could also have ratings. Okay, you could rate each pages from 5 star being the highest and 1 star being the lowest, and so on. Okay. And if you are technology literate, then when you're getting the latest news, you know how to use mass media platforms. You know how to navigate the television to turn it on, turn it off, and move it from one channel to another. Same with the radio, you know how to navigate the frequencies. MOR 101.9, yeah, stuff like that. Okay, or Love Radio 90.7. So you would go to FM and then you would find this frequency to access radio. Okay, that's the same with, even if it's radio on your cell phones, or, well, I mean, the actual cassette itself, or even radios on your car. Now, if you are technology literate, you also know where to access digital content, and you have the navigational skills of these different gadgets and machines. So now that we're done with the literacies, let us now go to the 5 laws of MIL. By the way, if you have questions, you may comment it here. Or you could actually put that on the question thread on your Google Classroom so that your teacher could answer your questions. Now let us proceed to the five laws of MIL, or Media Information Literacy. Number one law: information, communication, libraries, media technology, the internet, as well as the other forms of, of information providers are for use in critical civic engagement and sustainable development. They are equal in stature, and none is more relevant than the other or should ever be treated as such. Some people would say that newspapers are already outdated. Meh, that's not true. As a matter of fact, there are a lot of things that you could still see in the newspaper that you could not, truly find in social media platforms. And it is more reliable than these platforms anyway. Because in social media, anyone could simply put, news. Sometimes we even put satire or parody pages. And most people doesn't have, like, they don't have the time to counter check whether it's true or not. So you can see that newspapers are still reliable even if these are traditional media. Okay? Newspapers, television, and radio are all relevant. Okay? As relevant as the social media sites and other platform. Okay? Although I would say that you have to be careful on social media. All right? Just like what I told you earlier. Because not everything are valid and reliable in that platform. Next one is, okay, number two. Every citizen is a creator of information, knowledge, and has a message. They must be empowered to access new information or knowledge and to express themselves. And MIL is for all, women and men equally. I would say women, men, and all genders equally. And a nexus of human rights. Now let's go back to the first law. It actually stated here that it should be used, or MIL itself should be used in critical civic engagement and sustainable development. Having said that, we could say that we could help, okay, not just in human rights promotion or to be equal, we could also use MIL to better develop our country and provide sustainable solutions for the existing problems that we are experiencing at the moment. Okay? Actually, guys, I would like to share this with you. Recently, I have attended an ASEAN program under the ASEAN Youth Forum, and we have talked about how before there are like 20 to 25 years for us to save the earth, but at the moment we only have 3 to 5. And we if we don't listen to the call of nature, then I don't know if we would still have a planet to live in 5 years time. So this is actually being talked about in social media platforms. And the reason that I have known about this program of the ASEAN is actually the social media platforms. Therefore, therefore, it is very powerful, not just in human rights or sexual and gender rights. It is also very powerful when it comes to stating civic issues and civic engagements. Okay. By the way, if you wanted to ask someone to join a certain advocacy, you could simply look for them in the internet. So you see that it's very powerful, but at the same time, we have to be careful. Because if it goes out of control, then it would be like a domino effect of damage on all of us. Third law of MIL is information, knowledge, and messages are not always value neutral or always independent of biases. We have to take note that not everyone is capable of removing every bias on their system. Okay? We have to understand that all of us actually have our favorites at some point, but it's just a matter of controlling, okay, not being discreet about our favorites, not emphasizing it all the time, okay, or not to be mostly biased of the things that we just believe in. Okay, we have to also consider how other people are feeling about it. We have to consider if there are people who are being affected, okay, or getting affected if we insist all of our beliefs at once. So after all, it's about respect and I would say aside from respect, it's also about having to understand people, like empathy towards them. So I hope that you would apply that not just in the classroom, but outside the classroom, in your neighborhood, in your family as well. So moving on, any conceptualization, use, and application of MIL should make this truth transparent and understandable to all citizens. So you see, if we apply MIL, if we are all literate of media, information, and technology, then we have the responsibility to bring out the truth, okay, and make these truths understandable for everyone. Okay, that's why if you're literate, then the goal is for you to teach people. Fourth one is for every citizen wants to know and understand new information, knowledge, and messages, as well as to communicate, even if she or he is not aware, admits, or expresses that he or she does. Her or his rights must, however, never be compromised. So in this case, all of us actually wanted to learn something, but there are things that we might not know at all. Yet we choose to say that we actually know it. But you have to know that we have obligations, like moral obligations on something. And we have to know that even if we actually acquire an information, a certain information, um, we have to respect the rights of other people. Because our rights end at the beginning of other people's rights. You have to understand that. You have to put it in mind. Okay? And for the fifth one, media and information literacy is not acquired at once. It is a lived and dynamic experience, and it's also a process. It is complete when it includes knowledge, skills, and attitudes, when it covers access, evaluation, or assessment, use, production, and communication of information, media, and technology content. As you see, nothing is really easy in this world. All of us have to go a rigid process. But take note, even a diamond came from an ore. Before it becomes our precious gem, it's actually a rock, okay, an ore. And this ore goes through a rigid process. Okay, there are a lot of things that are being done on it just so they could get the diamond from it. All right. So being a media and information literate is like being a diamond. You have to go through that process to shine. All right. So those are the 5 laws of media and information literacy. Now that we know these laws and we have, defined all the terms, let us debunk media literacy myths. These are the things that are not actually true about media, but something that we believe in. I don't know if you're actually guilty of this. Okay? Let's see. First, do I need to be a media expert to learn media literacy? I am not a media practitioner. Okay. So, if you think that media literacy is just for those people who are media practitioners, like newscasters, the press themselves, then you are actually wrong. Okay? Media literacy is actually for what we call as media consumers. As stated here, we are all media consumers, and that gives us enough right and responsibility to practice media literacy in our lives. Because, media is everywhere. You open your phone, you open the television, you get out of your house, there is media. And you're using it, my dear people. So there's no excuse for you not to use it or not to be literate about it. Okay? As I always tell my student, I hate mediocre work. So let us not be mediocre users. Let us not be mediocre media users. Let us try our best to be literate about it so that we could responsibly use these media platforms. Moving on, what we are more concerned about is how the media crafts messages with meanings that affect our lives. So imagine if it is something that's affecting you, then wouldn't you care? Do you need to be a health practitioner, for example, to care about your life and your health? Of course not, right? It's your body. Therefore, you have like the responsibility to care for it. Same as your phones. This is your phone. It is a media. Therefore, you have the responsibility to actually be literate on how to use this one. Because if not, then you might affect other people. Next. Next myth. I know how to edit a video. I know how to shoot a digital camera. Am I a media literacy expert already? Okay, so I have experienced this for a very long time, especially during the time when I was a journalist, like a campus journalist, when we were in, when I was in college. So some people would say that I am media literate just simply because really enjoy photography. Okay, and just because I know how to navigate the computer. But the thing is, merely knowing how to operate media, gadgets, and equipment does not automatically make one media literate or a media literacy expert. As a media practitioner, are you also aware of the kind of messages you are encoding in the video you're shooting or editing? Because media literacy helps you become a better encoder of media messages in the long run. Okay? So being a media literate person does not only require you to know how to navigate these gadgets, but also how to provide efficient content. And of course, factual contents. All right, next thing to debunk. I know how to operate a DVD player. Oh dear. Am I too old or it's just that we rarely use our DVDs and CD players anymore? And a laptop. Am I considered a media literate person? Actually, merely knowing how to operate media machinery is not being media literate. Okay? Not because you know how to navigate it, you know how to open your laptop, you know how to type on your laptop, means that you're already media literate. Okay, what are the meanings that you get from the movies or TV shows that you watch on your DVD? For example, let's not say DVD. Let's say Netflix. Because you want to join the bandwagon. All right. So let's say Netflix, and you are watching Sandman because it's very, trendy nowadays. Okay. So what have you learned from it? Did you get the content? Or are you simply watching it just because it's at hype nowadays? So media literacy is more concerned not just on how you operate the gadget, but also on how you understand the content and the other aspects of it. Okay? In case that your laptop does not work, do you know how to troubleshoot? Or do you even know the word troubleshooting? Okay, so that would actually let you know whether you're media literate or just a gadget junkie. Anyway, analyzing for hidden meanings is so tiring. Ah, I could remember a lot of people from my past who have said this to me already. Okay, especially some of my students who doesn't want to analyze things or find hidden meanings beyond every, word that we are studying. Because before I was a literature teacher in the previous years before I taught media information and literacy. So, can we just enjoy the movie? I mean, enjoy watching the movie. All right. So media literacy is not merely about analyzing the hidden meanings. As I told you, it's usually done in literature just for the different approaches, because we have different approaches in it. If you have remembered your lessons in 21st century lit, right? But media literacy is also about enjoying the surface meanings of media messages. Okay, so it doesn't have to be deep. Okay, I don't like you guys to, to give meaning on things that are just surface level. Okay, if someone says, I'm here for you, that doesn't always have a double meaning in it. Or if someone says, you're pretty, that doesn't mean that they're being sarcastic in this case. So you have to simply enjoy it. Like, know when to find hidden meanings and know when not to. All right. So that if you're trying to somehow question how a certain character, okay, or a certain part of the plot works, then that's where you can find what we call as media literacy inquiry. I mean, that's the start of it, and it's the start of being literate towards media. So having known all of these, media literacy myths, I would like to give you this question, or I would like you to answer this question. Why exactly do we need to learn media and information literacy? Okay, so I would like you to write that on your Google Classroom. Okay, but I'm gonna give you an idea though. Media and information literacy will help us understand the value of being a media and information literate individual currently inhabiting the knowledge society. So it will be like a guideline for us whenever we encounter media products along the way. And MIL will also train us on how to become better thinkers and better media audiences. So being an effective media literate person will depend entirely up to you. Okay, now I want to hear your thoughts as well. So please also answer this question in your own words. I mean, in your own experience or based on what we have discussed today, what have you realized? What could we get from it? Why do we need to spend our time in learning media and information literacy? So for your activity next meeting, I would like you to please make a media use log. On your notebook, please copy the table below and record your interaction with the following media and information providers for the past week. Also, indicate how many hours you were spending and engaging with each one. So in here, we have the media or information provider on one column, and on the other, the number of hours in a week. First is YouTube. So how many hours do you actually spend on YouTube in a week? Facebook, television, radio, newspaper, and books. I would like you guys to be as honest as possible. Don't worry, I'm not gonna scold you but if you're not actually using some of these media or information provider. You just have to be true to yourselves, and we are going to use this one on our next meeting. All right? So I will be asking your teacher to look for your media use log on the next meeting. And to end this lesson, I would like to give you a little bit of advice from our dear friend Kofi Annan. Acquiring literacy is an empowering process. Indeed, right? Enabling millions to enjoy access to knowledge and information, which broadens horizons, increases opportunities, and creates alternatives for building a better life. I do hope that after this discussion and at the same time, after the semester, we would finally call ourselves media, information, and technology literate. Okay? Once again, thank you so much, my dear students, for listening in today's discussion. I am your teacher, Ms. Cheryl Ann S. Lugdu, and I am going to end the session for now. Yet if you have more questions, You could simply contact your teacher on Microsoft Teams, or you could simply send them a message on Messenger or other platforms where they have instructed you to send them a message to. Okay? Thank you so much and goodbye, my dear perpetualites. See you again on our next meeting.